Do you ever have that experience where you're listening to English speakers and it just feels like they're, well, operating on a totally different frequency?
Hmm.
You know, you're trying your best, right? But maybe idioms just sort of fly over your head, or the way they say a word just doesn't click.
Absolutely. It's a really common feeling.
Yeah, so if that sounds familiar, if you've been wanting to understand real everyday English a bit better, maybe speak with more confidence, then this deep dive is definitely for you.
Exactly. We've pulled together quite a range of insights, some real-life stories, and, practical vocabulary to help you navigate spoken English more naturally.
Right?
The idea is really to give you a clearer picture of how English is actually used day to day, boosting your ability to, well, understand and express yourself more easily.
Okay, so let's dive in. Where should we start? Maybe with something really fundamental, pronunciation.
Good starting point.
I remember this friend of mine, Daniel, first trip to New York City. He walks into a cafe, wants a croissant, that flaky pastry.
Classic.
Yeah. And he asks pretty confidently, actually, for a croissant.
And this is where it gets interesting, right? Because the actual sounds, the phonemes, they matter so much. You can know the word on paper perfectly.
Totally. But the person behind the counter, just the blank stare, nothing. So Daniel tries again, maybe a bit louder. Croissant. Still nothing. You could see him getting that familiar frustration creeping in.
Right, that feeling of, I know this word, why don't you know this word?
Exactly. Then luckily, another customer nearby leans over and says to the cashier, he means a croissant.
Ah, the local
And
pronunciation.
boom, light bulb moment for the cashier. Suddenly, totally understood.
And that just perfectly illustrates the point, doesn't it? You might have the spelling, the definition, all memorized. But hearing it said naturally, the way a native speaker shapes the sounds,
Yeah.
that engages a whole different part of your understanding.
It's like the sound and the meaning finally connect.
Precisely. It wasn't that Daniel didn't know the word. It was that gap in pronunciation that caused the roadblock.
And that was a real aha moment for him, I think. It really drove home how important it is to actually listen to how English is spoken.
Active listening.
Yeah, the more you kind of soak in that natural rhythm, the sounds, the more intuitive it becomes. And your own speaking gets more confident too, right?
Definitely. And part of that is because English borrows words from everywhere, so spelling isn't always a reliable guide to pronunciation.
Bigger point.
Plus, you have all the different accents, even within one country. Slight variations on the same word. Active listening helps you tune into all of that.
Okay, so that makes perfect sense and actually leads us right into the next big area. Those tricky little things, idioms and expressions.
Oh, yeah, the fun stuff.
My cousin Emma, her English is really strong, academically speaking. But when she moved to Canada for work, she found everyday chats were just packed with these colorful phrases, stuff you definitely don't find in textbooks.
That's such a common experience. Textbooks give you the foundation, the grammar rules, the literal meanings. But real conversation, it's full of figurative language, metaphors, idioms.
Totally. People spoke fast, used slang she'd never heard. The whole flow felt different.
Less formal, more dynamic.
Yeah. So she has this important meeting coming up, and her manager says, okay, Emma, make sure you touch base with Mike about the new project.
Uh-oh.
Emma's just completely stumped. Touch base. Like, physically tap something. What does that even mean?
It's not obvious from the words themselves, is it? Touch and base don't scream quick check-in.
Not at all. It wasn't until later a colleague kind of explained, oh, touch base just means, check in. Talk to him briefly about it. Then it finally clicked.
And that's a super common one, especially in work settings. It's a perfect example of an idiom. Understanding these is just vital for, keeping up with everyday conversations smoothly. That moment of understanding for Emma must have felt like a real win.
Definitely. So, okay, here's a practical tip for everyone listening. When you hear a new phrase like that, don't just look up the definition and move on. Really pay attention to how it was used. What was the situation? Then try saying it out loud yourself. Maybe even make up a sentence using it that relates to your own life.
That active engagement is key.
The more you kind of play with these expressions, the more natural they start to feel, both when you hear them and when you want to use them.
Yeah, it moves it from just head knowledge to something you can actually use instinctively. It's about building that intuition through context and repetition.
Okay, let's pause for a second. Think about your own experiences listening. Can you remember a time when something in English just didn't quite land? Maybe a word used in a weird way, or an expression that just completely threw you.
We've all been there.
What did you do? How did you figure it out? Imagine a simple one. You're checking into a hotel, and the person at the desk asks, "Would you like a wake-up call?"
Seems straightforward enough.
But if you've never heard that phrase in that context, you might genuinely wonder, are they asking if I enjoy being woken up? Like, literally.
Huh. Yeah, context is everything, isn't it? In a hotel, wake-up call means something very specific. They'll phone your room at a set time.
Exactly. These context-dependent phrases are everywhere, which is why, again, listening to real conversations is just such a powerful way to learn.
Couldn't agree more.
All right, let's try a quick practice. Just a short, polite sentence. I'll say it, then you repeat it, maybe just quietly to yourself. Ready? I'd like to order a coffee, please.
Pause for listener.
Good. Okay, here's another useful one. Could you repeat that, please?
Pause for listener.
Just saying these everyday things out loud helps get your mouth and brain used to the sounds, the rhythm of English.
Absolutely. They're foundational phrases. They build confidence for, more complex interactions down the line.
Okay, so let's talk about another common challenge. That gap between textbook English and, well, real life.
Ah, yes, the reality check.
My friend David, right, he studied English really hard. Books, grammar drills, the whole 9 yards. Felt pretty prepared when he moved to London for this great job.
Sounds familiar. You feel like you've got the rules down.
But the reality, the everyday chats in the London office, quite different.
Yeah, textbook English tends to be more formal, more structured. Real life is often more relaxed.
Yeah.
Full of those idioms we talked about, slang.
Exactly. First day, his manager introduces him around. Everyone's super friendly, but they're talking so fast, using expressions David had never, ever seen in a book.
Overwhelming, I bet.
Totally. Then lunchtime rolls around. One of his new colleagues, Liam, says, "Hey, David, let's grab a bite."
Okay, grab a bite. Seems simple enough to a native speaker.
But David was just lost. Grab a... what? He kind of hesitated, mumbled okay, and just followed Liam, feeling totally clueless.
And you can see why. Grab means take quickly. Bite means, well, a bite of food. Put them together is just informal for let's get something to eat. But if you're expecting formal language.
Yeah, it can be baffling. And that was a real eye-opener for David. He realized his grammar was solid, sure, but he needed to tune into the sound of how people actually spoke.
The nuances, the rhythm.
So he made a real conscious effort, started listening to English podcasts on his commute.
Smart move.
And at lunchtime, instead of, sitting alone, he'd join his colleagues, just listen to them chat.
That immersion, even in small doses, makes such a difference over time.
It was tough at first, definitely. Didn't always catch everything, felt a bit awkward sometimes.
Sure.
But crucially, when he got stuck, instead of just staying quiet, he started asking simple things like, "Sorry, what does that mean?" Or, "Could you say that again?"
That takes courage, but it's so effective.
And guess what? His colleagues were totally fine with it, happy to explain. And slowly, gradually, his understanding really started to improve.
That's great to hear. And it highlights, don't be afraid to ask. Most people are happy to help learners. It shows you're engaged.
Then there was this one moment, a real sign of progress for him, team meeting. The manager says, "All right, everyone, let's wrap things up."
Another common phrase.
And this time, David didn't feel that panic, that confusion. He just got it. Understood immediately it meant let's finish the meeting.
Ah, fantastic.
He said it was a real aha moment, realizing how much he'd picked up just by actively listening day after day.
Those small victories are so motivating. They build your confidence step by step, proving that the listening practice really works.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk practical stuff. Understanding common phrases when you're traveling.
Oh, very useful. Airports, hotels.
Imagine arriving in an English-speaking country, maybe for the first time. You walk up to the immigration desk, and the officer asks, "What's the purpose of your visit?"
Standard question, but
Yeah.
yeah, if you're not expecting it or you overthink it, you might suddenly feel put on the spot, like you need to give your whole life story.
Right, but usually they're just looking for simple answers. I'm here for tourism, I'm visiting family, something straightforward.
Exactly.
Actually, a listener shared a story with us recently. She was traveling to Australia, felt pretty good about her English overall. But at immigration, the officer asked her, "Do you have anything to declare?" Declare. Okay, that sounds a bit formal, maybe even a little intimidating if you haven't heard it used that way before.
Yeah, she kind of froze. Declare. What does that mean? Do I need to make some grand announcement? Am I carrying something illegal?
In a little moment of panic.
She took a breath, politely asked him to repeat it, and he rephrased. Are you carrying any food, alcohol, or large amounts of money you need to report?
Clarification.
Suddenly, crystal clear. Declare just meant report stuff to customs.
So her issue wasn't really a lack of English ability, it was just encountering a specific phrase in the specific context that was new to her.
Exactly. And she said it really highlighted how important it is to hear these kinds of functional phrases used in realistic situations. The more you hear them, the faster you recognize them and can respond.
Makes sense. Exposure and context.
So let's do another quick practice. Repeat after me. Where are you traveling from?
Pause for listener.
Good. And another common one. Do you have a return ticket?
Pause for listener.
Just getting familiar with these questions can really lower the stress level at the airport, you know?
Definitely. Knowing those key phrases beforehand makes a huge difference to your confidence, how smoothly those first interactions go.
Okay, moving on. Another everyday situation where listening is crucial. Ordering food.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Cafes, restaurants.
Picture this. Busy coffee shop, maybe in London. You finally get to the counter, barista looks up, what can I get you? Or maybe even faster, what can I get you? Okay, maybe you're prepared. I'd like a latte, please. Simple enough, but then they hit you with the follow-up for here or to go.
Right, that little phrase seems simple, but if you haven't heard it, for here, to go where?
Exactly. A friend, Mark, had this happen in the US, ordered a bagel. Cashier asks, for here or to go? He just hesitated, never heard it put quite like that.
What did he do?
He took a guess, figured to go probably meant takeaway, and luckily he was right. But he felt pretty unsure in that moment.
It really shows how even common service interactions have their own standard phrases, which might vary by region too.
Totally. And after that, Mark started really paying attention when people ordered. He noticed in the US, lots of people say, "Can I get a doc?" instead of the more formal "I would like."
Yeah, can I get a coffee? Very common.
And he also picked up on cashiers saying, "That'll be," to tell you the total price, like, "That'll be $6.75.
Right, short for that will be.
If you've never heard that contraction used that way, you might miss that they're telling you how much to pay.
But like you said, once you hear these things a few times in context, they just click, they become familiar, easy to understand, and eventually easy to use yourself. So that repeated exposure.
Precisely. Okay, practice time again. Repeat after me. What can I get for you?
Pause for listener.
Excellent. And the cashier's response, that'll be $5.50.
Pause for listener.
Good stuff. Actively listening, actively repeating it wires those patterns into your brain. Makes understanding and speaking in these situations so much easier.
Foundational stuff for just getting by in an English-speaking place.
Okay, let's talk about something else that's really key for using English in the real world. Making small talk.
Ah, the art of casual conversation.
Yeah, those light chats you have, meeting someone new, waiting in line somewhere. It might seem less important than grammar rules, but actually, it's huge for improving fluency, connecting with people, just feeling more comfortable.
It really is. Small talk serves a vital social purpose, doesn't it? It's how we build rapport, find common ground, kind of ease into things, creates a friendly vibe.
So a listener named Maria, she moved from Argentina to an English-speaking city. She told us she felt really anxious about small talk, studied English for ages, but just felt lost about what to say to people she didn't know well.
That anxiety is so common for language learners. Social pressure feels higher when you're not 100% confident with the language.
Totally. First week at her new job, a colleague, Ben, invites her for coffee with some others. Maria's worrying, right? What if I say the wrong thing? What if I don't understand them? So they're sitting there, and Ben just asks casually, "So, how was your weekend?"
Maria pauses. She said in her culture, talking about the weekend might involve more detail. She wasn't sure what was expected.
Different cultural norms around conversation depth.
Right, so she just gave a simple, safe answer. It was good, I went for a walk. But then Ben smiled and asked, "Oh, that's nice. Where did you go for your walk?"
Then that's how it works, right? That simple follow-up. It's not usually about giving a long speech. It's a back and forth, showing interest.
Exactly. Maria realized, okay, this isn't some deep interrogation, it's just friendly connection. So over the next few days, she started trying it herself, asking colleagues simple, open questions like, "Did you have a good commute?" Or, "Looking forward to the weekend."
Taking the initiative.
And she was surprised. It got easier, and she learned so much just listening to their answers.
And that's a key insight, isn't it? Small talk is as much about listening as speaking. Paying attention to responses, the kinds of questions they ask, you learn the natural rhythm. Through these little chats, Maria learned something crucial. Small talk isn't pointless chatter. It's about building connections. The more you do it, the better it feels. And by listening, you naturally pick up useful phrases. Like, Ben didn't ask, "What did you do?" He asked, "How was your weekend?" Subtle difference.
Those phrasing nuances you absorb through exposure, not usually from a grammar rule, it helps you sound more natural yourself.
Here's another tip that Maria found helpful. People usually don't expect super long, detailed answers in small talk. Often, it's more about a brief response and then maybe turning it back to them, showing interest.
Taping the ball rolling.
Yeah, like if someone says, "Weather's been crazy, hasn't it?" You could just say, "It has. What do you think about it?" Keeps it going. Maria started doing that, using phrases like, "What about you?" to keep the conversation flowing and show she was listening.
Simple, but so effective for showing engagement and encouraging the other person.
Okay, let's just briefly mention another hurdle many learners face: understanding different accents.
Oh, definitely. British versus American, Australian, Canadian.
Right.
Then all the regional accents within those countries. It adds another layer.
It certainly does. It's a valid challenge.
And getting exposure to various accents is really beneficial for building those broader listening skills. It's like pronunciation variations in sound, rhythm, intonation.
But let's just step back for a sec and remember something fundamental here. Every single conversation you have, every story you hear on a podcast, every real-life situation where English is flying around, it's all a chance to get better.
Right.
English isn't just this static thing you learn from a book, right? It's alive, it changes, you experience it through interacting with people.
That active engagement with the language as it's actually used is what truly deepens understanding and builds real confidence, both in listening and speaking.
I remember visiting Scotland once, asked for directions. The person helping me had this really strong local accent, used some phrases I didn't know.
Tricky situation.
Yeah, I could understand the individual words mostly, but the rhythm, the way they strung them together, it threw me off at first. But I just focused on the gist, asked them to repeat a bit, and I got where I needed to go. It showed me understanding isn't always about catching every single word.
That's a great point. Focusing on the overall meaning and being okay asking for clarification, that's a key skill for navigating different accents and speaking styles.
So yeah, if you're struggling with a specific accent, don't get discouraged. Try to find ways to hear more movies, TV, podcasts from that region, and focus on the main idea, not perfection.
And remember, native speakers encounter different accents all the time too. People are generally understanding and often willing to adjust a bit if needed.
Okay, let's move to one last really practical skill. Handling problems or making complaints politely but effectively in English.
Ah, yes. Customer service situations, hotel issues.
Yeah.
Knowing how to state your case clearly is important.
It's about being able to sort things out right. I remember staying at a hotel once. Air conditioning wasn't working in the room. Bit annoying. So I went down to reception, stayed calm, and said something like, "Excuse me, I'm having a problem with the air conditioning in my room. It doesn't seem to be working. Could someone please take a look at it?"
Polite, clear, states the problem.
And the receptionist was great, replied, "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, sir. Let me check on that for you right away." Her polite response immediately made the whole situation less stressful.
Exactly. That interaction shows how important it is to stay calm, use clear language, be polite. It sets a positive tone for getting it resolved.
So if you find yourself needing to address an issue, try to keep your cool. Explain clearly, maybe use phrases like, "I'm having trouble with," or "There's an issue with." Be specific.
Get straight to the point, but politely.
And then listen carefully to their response. They might say, "Let me see what I can do," or "I'll have someone look into that." Crucially, don't be afraid to ask for clarification if you don't understand.
Yes. It's okay to say, "Could you explain that again, please?" Or, "Sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Could you repeat it?"
Clarity and patience are key on both sides. And politeness, even when you're frustrated, goes a long way.
Absolutely. Good advice for any language, really.
So as we kind of wrap things up here, as you continue on your English journey navigating the world, I really want to encourage you to think about this. How actively are you really tuning into all those little nuances of everyday English? You know, from casual hellos and slang, maybe some jargon at work, different regional ways of saying things. All those subtle bits hold the key to unlocking a much deeper understanding. And with that comes more confidence, right, in listening and speaking.
It really does go way beyond just knowing dictionary definitions.
Totally. So here's a final thought to mull over. What's one small conscious step you could take, maybe even today, to immerse yourself just a little bit more fully in the rich, messy, dynamic world of real-life English?